Advanced grammar. Introduction. Consider these facts. English is a worldwide phenomenon. Most of the people learning English at the outset of the 21st century, or a substantial number of people living in the United States, did not grow up in a home where English was a native language. Also, a substantial number of us did not grow up in homes where English was the native language, but it was spoken in a non-standard manner. Many of us are approaching English as a second language or almost as if it were a second language. Consequently, we study English grammar to understand the way the language works. English is a very flexible language, continuously changing. However, English requires some standard practices. Standardization facilitates effective communication, especially written communication. If we fail to utilize universally understood standards, we risk splintering our language into dialects. Adjective. Adjectives describe or give information about nouns. The form of adjectives does not change. It does not matter if the noun being modified is male or female, singular or plural, subject or object. Some adjectives show that somebody thinks about something or somebody. Nice, horrid, beautiful, etc. Example: Merlin was beautiful. Adjective usage. Adjectives can be used to give your opinion about something. Good, pretty, right, wrong, funny, light, happy, sad, full, soft, hard, etc. Example: She is a pretty girl. Adjectives can be used to describe size: big, small, little, long, tall, short, same as, etc. Example: the big elephant or the short pencil. Adjectives can be used to describe age. Example: She was an old woman. Adjectives can be used to describe shape: round, circular, triangular, square, oval, etc. Example: It was a circular in shape. Adjectives can be used to describe color: blue, red, green, etc. Example: the red flag. Adjectives can be used to describe origin. Example: It was an American flag. Adjectives can be used to describe material. Example: It was a golden bracelet. Adjectives can be used to describe distance: long, short, far, around, start, high, low, etc. Example: She went for a long drive. Adjectives can be used to describe temperature: cold, warm, hot, etc. Example: The night was cold. Adjectives can be used to describe time: late, early, bed, nap, dinner, lunch, day, morning, night, etc. Example: He wakes up early in the morning. Adjectives can be used to describe purpose. Example: She gave them a traveling bag. Comparative adjective. When we compare two things or people, we look at what makes them different from one another. Examples: 1. The giraffe is taller than the dog. 2. A jet is faster than an aeroplane. Possessive adjective. Possessive adjectives are used to show ownership or possession. Examples: 1. I own this scooter. This is my scooter. 2. You own this book. I presume it is your book. Superlative adjective. The superlative is used to say what thing or person has the most of a particular quality within a group or of its kind. Superlative adjectives normally come before any other adjectives. Examples: Everest is the highest mountain in the world. High is a short one-syllable word. 2. Arguably, Rome is the most beautiful city in the world. Adverbs. Adverbs can tell you where, when, how, why, and to what extent something happens. They are often formed from adjectives or nouns by adding the suffix ly, li. To form an adverb from adjectives ending in y, change the y to I before adding the ly. For example, angry becomes angrily, busy becomes busily. To form an adverb from adjectives ending in e, drop the e before adding the ly. For example, feeble becomes feebly, true becomes truly. Some adjectives ending in ly need no changes. For example, heavenly. Some adverbs do not end in ly. For example, fast, hard, straight, etc. Adverbs of degree. These adverbs tell us the strength or intensity of something that happens. Many adverbs are gradable. That is, we can intensify them. To do this, we use adverbs of degree. These include adequately, almost, entirely, extremely, greatly, highly, hugely, immensely, moderately, partially, perfectly, practically, profoundly, strongly, totally, tremendously, very, virtually, etc. For example, 1. He is lazy. He is extremely lazy. In this sentence, extremely shows us how lazy he is. I think he is wonderful. I think he is absolutely wonderful. In this sentence, absolutely shows us how wonderful he is. Adverbs of duration. These adverbs tell us how long something happened. They include briefly, forever, long, shortly, permanently, temporarily. For example, the phone was out of order. The phone was temporarily out of order. In this sentence, temporarily shows us the duration. Adverbs of frequency. Some adverbs tell how often something is done. These include always, constantly, frequently, normally, often, periodically, rarely, regularly, sometimes, etc. For example, I pay my rent every month. I pay my rent monthly. In this sentence, monthly shows us the frequency. Adverbs of manner. Some adverbs tell us how action is or should be performed. For example, the girl ran quickly. In this sentence, quickly modifies the verb ran. Adverbs of place. Some adverbs indicate where something happens. These include abroad, anywhere, here, outside, somewhere, there, underground, upstairs. For example, the children were playing outside. Adverbs of probability. These adverbs tell us the likelihood of something happening. These include certainly, definitely, doubtlessly, maybe, perhaps, possibly, probably. For example, India will win the match. India will certainly win the match. In this sentence, certainly shows us the probability. Adverbs of time. Some adverbs tell us when something happened. These include afterwards, later, now, soon, yesterday. For example, I am going to the shop on Monday. In this sentence, Monday indicates the time. Comparative. Adverbs of comparison are used to show how better or worse a thing does than the other. For example, Monica did her homework more frequently. Superlative. The superlative is used to indicate the greatest degree of being within a group or of its kind. Superlatives can be preceded by the. Articles. There are only 3 articles in English: a, an, and the. There are 2 types of articles: indefinite a and an, or definite the. Their proper use is complex, especially when you get into the advanced use of English. Quite often, you have to work by what sounds right, which can be frustrating for a learner. We usually use no article to talk about things in general. The doesn't mean all. For example, 1. Books are expensive. All books are expensive. For example, 2. The books are expensive. Not all the books are expensive. Indefinite article. A and an are the indefinite articles. A and an are used before nouns that introduce something or someone you have not specifically known to the person you are communicating with. For example, he is an English teacher. Definite article. You use the when you know that the listener knows or can work out what particular person or thing you are talking about. For example, Harry's bar is the place to go. No article. You do not use an article before nouns when talking in general terms. For example, tennis is expensive. Case. Case is the grammatical function of a noun or pronoun. The 3 cases in modern English are subjective, he, objective, him, and possessive, his. They may seem more familiar in their Old English form: nominative, accusative, and genitive. Most of our cases have been removed, and as a result, English is easier than many other languages because nouns and some indefinite pronouns, anyone, someone, everyone, and so on, only have a distinctive case form for the possessive. However, a remnant of Old English is that pronouns have distinctive forms in all 3 cases and must be used with care. The pronoun cases are simple. Subjective case. Pronouns used as subject. Objective case. Pronouns used as objects of verbs or prepositions. Possessive case. Pronouns which express ownership. Determiners. Determiners are used in front of nouns to indicate whether you are referring to something specific or something of a particular type. Determiners are different to pronouns in that a determiner is always followed by a noun. Therefore, personal pronouns I, you, he, etc. and possessive pronouns mine, yours, his, etc. cannot be determiners. Specific determiners. You use a specific determiner when people know exactly which thing, things, or person, people you are talking about. The specific determiners are the definite article, the demonstratives, this, that, these, possessives, my, your, his, her, its, our, their. For example, the black dog is outside the building. These games are a lot of fun. Your train was late. General determiners. You use general determiners to talk about people or things without saying exactly who or what they are. For example, do you know where there is a post office? My brother never does anything good. There is little money. We can't buy a lot of expensive food. Participles. A participle is a word formed from a verb that can function as part of a verb phrase. For example, has been or independently as an adjective. For example, working woman. There are three forms of participle: the present participle, the past participle, the perfect participle. Past participle. A past participle indicates past or completed action or time. It is often called the ed form as it is formed by adding d or ed to the base form of regular verbs. However, it is also formed in various other ways for irregular verbs. It can be used to form a verb phrase as part of the present perfect tense. For example, I have learnt Spanish. Learnt is part of the verb phrase have learnt. It can be used to form the passive voice. For example, her hair was well brushed. It can also be used as an adjective. For example, as an adjective, he had a broken arm. Broken is used here as an adjective. Perfect participle. The perfect participle indicates completed action. You form the perfect participle by putting the present participle having in front of the past participle. For example, having done, having finished, having read, having spoken. It can be used to form the passive voice. For example, having improved her communication skills, Mary's promotion prospects were much better. Preposition. Prepositions are a class of words that indicate relationships between nouns, pronouns, and other words in a sentence. Most often, they come before a noun. They never change their form, regardless of the case, gender, etc. of the word they are referring to. Prepositions are classified as simple or compound. Simple preposition. Simple prepositions are single-word prepositions: across, after, at, before, between, by, during, from, in, into, of, on, to, under, with and without are all single-word prepositions. For example, the pen is on the table. Compound preposition. Compound prepositions are more than one word. In between and because of are prepositions made up of two words. In front of and behalf of are prepositions made up of three words. For example, the book is in front of the clock. Preposition of movement. Prepositions can be used to show movement. For example, to, through, across. We use to show movement with the aim of a specific destination. For example, I moved to Japan in 2004. He's gone to the shops. We use through to show movement from one side of an enclosed space to the other. For example, the train went through the tunnel. We use across to show movement from one side of a surface or line to another. For example, she swam across the river. Preposition of place. Prepositions can be used to show where something is located. For example, someone is at the door. They are waiting at the bus stop. I used to live at 20 Ramson Street. Preposition of time. Prepositions can also be used to show when something happened. For example, I start work at 8 a.m. My birthday is on Friday. I started this club in 2001. Direct speech. Saying exactly what someone has said is called direct speech, sometimes called quoted speech. Here, what a person says appears within quotation marks and should be word for word. For example, she said, "Today's lesson is on grammar," or "Today's lesson is on grammar," she said. Indirect speech. Indirect speech, sometimes called reported speech, doesn't use quotation marks to enclose what the person said, and it doesn't have to be word for word. When reporting speech, the tense usually changes. This is because when we use reported speech, we are usually talking about a time in the past, because obviously the person who spoke originally spoke in the past. The verbs, therefore, usually have to be in the past too. For example, direct speech. I'm going to the market, he said. Indirect speech. He said he was going to the market. Conjunction. Conjunctions are words that join or link sentences. Here are some examples of conjunctions. Sentence 1. He went to office. Sentence 2. He missed the train. The two sentences given are now linked by the conjunction because. He went late to office because he missed the train. Here is a list of commonly used conjunctions: and, either, or, for, but, if, yet, in case, after, neither, nor, though, although, even if, so, as, so that, because, whereas, till, until, whether, etc. There are two types of conjunctions. They are coordinating conjunctions, subordinating conjunctions. Coordinating conjunctions. Examples: and, but, nor, or, for, yet, so, etc. Subordinating conjunctions. Examples: although, because, since, unless, etc. Coordinating conjunctions. The short, simple conjunctions are called coordinating conjunctions: and, but, or, nor, for, yet, so. A coordinating conjunction joins parts of a sentence. For example, words or independent clauses that are grammatically equal or similar. A coordinating conjunction shows that the elements it joins are similar in importance and structure. Look at these examples. The two elements that the coordinating conjunction joins are shown in square brackets. I like tea and coffee. Ram likes tea, but Anthony likes coffee. Coordinating conjunctions always come between the words or clauses they join. When a coordinating conjunction joins independent clauses, it is always correct to place a comma before the conjunction. Example, I want to work as an interpreter in the future, so I am studying French at the university. However, if the independent clauses are short and well balanced, a comma is not really essential. For example, she is kind, so she helps people. When and is used with the last word of a list, a comma is optional. Example, he drinks beer, whiskey, wine, and rum. Subordinating conjunctions. The majority of conjunctions are subordinating conjunctions. Common subordinating conjunctions are after, although, as, because, before, how, if, once, since, than, that, though, till, until, when, where, whether, while. A subordinating conjunction joins a subordinate dependent clause to a main independent clause. Look at this example. Sam went swimming, although it was raining. A subordinating conjunction always comes at the beginning of a subordinate clause. It introduces a subordinate clause. However, a subordinate clause can sometimes come after and sometimes before a main clause. Thus, two structures are possible. Sam went swimming, although it was raining. Although it was raining, Sam went swimming. Forms. Conjunctions have three basic forms. Single word, for example, and, but, because, although. Examples. 1. He came and knocked at the door. 2. Although he studied well, he has not been able to come first. Compound, often ending with as or that. For example, provided that, as long as, in order that. Examples. 1. He is an actor as well as a director. 2. As far as I am concerned, money matters a lot. Correlative, surrounding an adverb or adjective. For example, so, that. Examples. He is a graduate, whereas his brother is a high school dropout. 2. I will come by the end of this month, so that we will meet then. Functions. Conjunctions have two basic functions. Coordinating conjunctions are used to join two parts of a sentence that are grammatically equal. The two parts may be single words or clauses. For example, Jack and Jill went up the hill. The water was warm, but I didn't go swimming. Subordinating conjunctions are used to join a subordinate dependent clause to a main clause. For example, I went swimming, although it was cold. Positions. Coordinating conjunctions always come between the words or clauses that they join. Subordinating conjunctions usually come at the beginning of the subordinate clause. Gerunds. Gerunds are sometimes called verbal nouns. When a verb ends in ing, it may be a gerund or a present participle. It is important to understand that they are not the same. When we use a verb in ing form, more like a noun, it is usually a gerund. Example, fishing is fun. When we use a verb in ing form, more like a verb or an adjective, it is usually a present participle. Example, Peter is fishing. I have a boring teacher. Gerunds are subject or complement. Try to think of gerunds as verbs in noun form. Like nouns, Gerunds can be the subject, object, or complement of a sentence. Examples: smoking costs a lot of money. I don't like writing. My favorite occupation is reading. But, like a verb, a gerund can also have an object itself. In this case, the whole expression, gerund plus object, can be the subject, object, or complement of the sentence. Examples: smoking cigarettes costs a lot of money. I don't like writing letters. My favorite occupation is reading detective stories. Like nouns, we can use gerunds with adjectives, including articles and other determiners. Examples: pointless questioning, a settling of debts, the making of Titanic, his drinking of alcohol. But when we use a gerund with an article, it does not usually take a direct object. Examples: a settling of debts, not a settling debts. Making Titanic was expensive. The making of Titanic was expensive. Gerunds after prepositions. This is a good rule. It has no exceptions. If we want to use a verb after a preposition, it must be a gerund. It is impossible to use an infinitive after a preposition. So, for example, we say, I will call you after arriving at the office. Please have a drink before leaving. I am looking forward to meeting you. Do you object to working late? Tina always dreams about going on holiday. Notice that you could replace all the above gerunds with real nouns. I will call you after my arrival at the office. Please have a drink before your departure. I am looking forward to our lunch. Do you object to this job? Tara always dreams about holidays. Gerunds after certain verbs. We sometimes use one verb after another verb. Often the second verb is in the infinitive form. For example, I want to eat. But sometimes the second verb must be in gerund form. For example, I dislike eating. This depends on the first verb. Here is a list of verbs that are usually followed by a verb in gerund form. Admit, appreciate, avoid, carry on, consider, defer, delay, deny, detest, dislike, endure, enjoy, escape, excuse, face, feel like, finish, forgive, give up, can't help, imagine, involve, leave off, mention, mind, miss, postpone, practice, put off, report, resent, risk, can't stand, suggest, understand. Look at these examples. She is considering having a holiday. Do you feel like going out? I can't help falling in love with you. I can't stand not seeing you. Gerunds in passive sense. We often use a gerund after the verbs need, require, and want. In this case, the gerund has a passive sense. Examples: I have 3 shirts that need washing, needs to be washed. This contract requires signing, needs to be signed. The house wants repainting, needs to be repainted. Voice. There are 2 special forms for verbs called voice: active voice, passive voice. The passive voice is less usual than the active voice. The active voice is the normal voice, but sometimes we need the passive voice. In this lesson, we look at how to construct the passive voice, when to use it, and how to conjugate it. Construction of the passive voice. Subject plus auxiliary verb be plus main verb, past participle. The main verb is always in its past participle form. Look at these examples. Water is drunk by everyone. 100 people are employed by this company. I am paid in euro. We are not paid in dollars. Use of the passive voice. We use the passive voice when we want to make the active object more important. Example, Mahatma Gandhi was killed by Nathuram. We use the passive when we do not know the active subject. Example, my wallet has been stolen. Note that we always use by to introduce the passive object. Fish are eaten by cats. Conjugation of voice. We can form the passive in any tense. In fact, conjugation of verbs in the passive tense is rather easy, as the main verb is always in past participle form and the auxiliary verb is always be. To form the required tense, we conjugate the auxiliary verb. So, for example, present simple, it is made. Present continuous, it is being made. Present perfect, it has been made. Punctuations. Punctuation means making points. It means putting the right kind of points in the right place so as to mark the exact length and meaning of sentences. Proper punctuation is essential in writing to enable the reader to understand what it is you are trying to say. Full stop. Full stops go at the end of sentences that are statements. You do not put a space before a full stop, but you do need at least one space after one. 2 spaces for purists. For example, her name is Nancy. She is a teacher. Question mark. Question marks go at the end of sentences that are questions. As with full stops, you do not put a space before a question mark, but you do need at least one space after one. 2 spaces for purists. For example, is her name Nancy? Of course it is. Exclamation marks. Exclamation marks act as a full stop. It is most often used to show shock, surprise, horror, or pleasure. As with full stops, you do not put a space before an exclamation mark, but you do need at least one space after one. 2 spaces for purists. For example, oh, ah, wow, brilliant, etc. Commas. Commas point out brief pauses in a complex sentence or separate items in long lists. They are useful for breaking up long sentences, but only to show a natural break. You do not put a space before a comma, but you do need a space after one. For example, there were a lot of people in the room, teachers, students, and parents. The teachers were sitting, the students were listening, and the parents were just worrying. Note, we don't usually put a comma before the word and. Colons. Colons precede a list, an explanation or an example. You do not put a space before a colon, but you do need a space after one. Example, there are 2 main shopping areas in New Delhi, Connaught Place and Lajpat Nagar. Semicolons. Semicolons are used to separate 2 sentences that would otherwise be joined with a word such as and, because, since, unless, or while. You do not put a space before a semicolon, but you do need a space after one. For example, I'm looking forward to our next lesson. I'm sure it will be a lot of fun. Speech marks. Speech marks are used to show words that are directly spoken. Only the words that quote a person are enclosed by speech marks. You need a space before the opening speech mark and a space after the closing one, but no space before the closing one. For example, "Could everyone sit down, please?" said the teacher. Apostrophes. Apostrophes next to the letter S indicate belonging. No space is needed before or after the apostrophe. For example, Monica's car. Capitalization. Capital letters are used for two main purposes in English: to show the beginning of a sentence, to show that a noun is a proper noun. The first letter of every new sentence is capitalized. For example, the postman delivered the parcel. It was very heavy. The pronoun I is always capitalized. For example, my name is Peter. I am a teacher. Proper nouns, also called proper names, are the words which name specific people, organizations, or places. They always start with a capital letter. Sentence. A sentence is a group of words which starts with a capital letter and ends with a full stop, question mark, or exclamation mark. A sentence contains or implies a predicate and a subject. Complete sentence. If it helps you, think about a sentence as if it were a skeleton. The skeleton contains various bones, and these bones are put together to form different parts of the body. So are sentences formed by words. The words are the bones, and they are put together in different ways to form sentences. Simple sentence. A simple sentence contains a single subject and predicate. It describes only one thing, idea, or question, and has only one verb. It contains only an independent main clause. For example, Jenny reads. The black dog with the white collar always barks loudly. The dog barked and growled loudly. Compound sentence. Compound sentences are made up of two or more simple sentences combined using a conjunction such as and, or but. They are made up of more than one independent clause, joined together with a coordinating conjunction. For example, sentence 1. The sun was setting in the west. Sentence 2. The moon was just rising. Compound sentence. The sun was setting in the west and the moon was just rising. Complex sentences. Complex sentences describe more than one thing or idea and have more than one verb in them. They are made up of more than one clause, an independent clause that can stand by itself, and a dependent, subordinate clause which cannot stand by itself. For example, my mother likes dogs that don't bark. I went to the show that was very popular. Before they go to the airport, they will visit you. Conclusion. English is an accommodating language. Some dictionaries have recorded considerably more than 500,000 English words. Some authorities believe that there will be more than 1 million English words when the recently developed technical are included. However, one study indicates that most of us accomplish most of our communication with fewer than 1,000 words. English allows us to develop new words to express new thoughts. Although English facilitates communication of complex or new thoughts, effective communication is a challenge.